Today's session is going to be on what's new in Creo Illustrate 8. And with that, we will get right to what you came here to learn about. So to start off with, we'll go through a quick agenda of the main topics that we're going to be going through. Now, as with all of my presentations, as we go through each one of these segments, at the end of each one, we'll open it up briefly for some questions. And as part of that, if you want to make sure that you type those questions into the question and answer as opposed to the chat, that would be very helpful. So with that, we will get started. So these first two capabilities at the top here are both related to each other. So I'm actually going to be demoing those together. And that is all about being able to create standards, be able to manage that. There's actually a new admin capability that will allow you to author those standards. And I'll show you how you can get into that. The second one is actually being able to apply those standards to existing files. So this is the ability to be able to update a standard that has been applied inside of a C3DI file. So this is a capability that we've been lacking up until now. So you will be able to do that to bring all of your C3DI files up to the same standard, assuming that you've been applying changes to your standard over the past couple years. In addition, we've added a new ability to edit animation effects. So this is the ability, so like if you've used the unscrew or flash or things of that nature, you can now edit those in the timeline without having to interact directly with the keyframes. And then this last one here is we've reduced the file size of textures and decals and published content. So we're using a new format and a new compression algorithm along with that to get some pretty significant reductions. And so with that, we will jump into this. So as was mentioned, there is now a new tool along with Creo Illustrate that allows you to actually create and manage the standards that you apply to your illustration. So being able to control, the call out styles and colors available and all of those kinds of things. You've had the ability to create a standard, but this is actually now a dedicated tool that not only allows you to create these standards, it allows you to lock options. It's a special mode that you can go into that allows you to do this. So you can actually install this for only key people in your organization that you would actually want making changes to these standards, as opposed to this being a general availability to everyone. Now, this administration tool is available to everybody. It does require that you have a Creo Illustrate license, and in this case, a Creo Illustrate 8 license to be able to use it. But it is part of the standard package, although it does require deliberate installation. And that's where you can keep people that you don't want using it from not having it. So with that, being able to install it, so as you go through your installation with Creo Illustrate, once you've accepted the license agreement, you would click on Advanced down at the bottom. And it's going to ask you where you want to install it. You can just change that if you want to. Then you would click Next, and then you get your product features capability. Now, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see this new capability here, Creo Illustrate Administration Tool. You want to make sure that that is enabled to be installed, and then finish the installation. Now, what actually happens is it creates a second launcher that is specifically for this admin tool. So it is actually part of Creo Illustrate, but it launches Creo Illustrate in essence in a special mode. Now, you can run both of them simultaneously, and you can see down here that I actually have both of them running already. So it's not going to prevent you from using Creo Illustrate if you have this installed or even running in the background. But it is a specifically dedicated mode. Now, being as we're going to be showing these first two capabilities together, I want to go ahead and talk about being actually able to apply an update to an existing Creo Illustrate file. So, you've used your admin tool now, you've created a standard or you've updated an already existing standard. What this capability allows you to do is actually apply that update to existing C3DI files. And as you can see here in this dialog, we are actually looking for you when you open up a C3DI file. Is the standard that's in it the most current one? And if it's not, then we pop up this dialog and allow you to either accept or not that new standard. So you can apply that standard and then continue on with your illustration work. Now, one of the reasons that we've done this together is so that if you deleted a callout style, well, what are you replacing it with? Because if you delete the callout style and it's being used in your illustrations, then that callout will disappear. So in the admin tool, you have the capability to say, okay, if I'm deleting this callout style, I want to replace it with this other one or map it to this other callout style. So this gives us the ability to intelligently apply these updates and not just delete and add things without giving you the ability to say, hey, this is the intended result I want because I made this change. And so with that, we will actually take a look at the admin tool. So as you can see here, your options are much more limited in the administration tool. So you have the ability to create a new standard. So I could go in and type in a name of a standard, click OK, and it would allow me to run through the process. I can manage already existing standards, and this is showing me the standards that are on this local machine. So I even from here, I can create new, I can add one. So if I already have say if somebody sent me a standards zip package, I could add that in. I could edit one of these already existing ones. I could duplicate it. So if I wanted to make one that's just a little bit different, I can share it, which is basically I can save that standard out so that I can allow other people access, delete, and set as default. All of those good things. But what I'm going to show you how to do is actually bring in an existing Creo Illustrate file and make adjustments to this standard as a new standard. So again, as you can see, this interface is showing me a limited set of tools. The other thing that this allows you to do is actually see what happens when you make changes to call out styles and things of that nature. So if I go into, say, this particular one here, and I want to make updates to these call out styles, as you can see, this box takes up a considerable amount of space. If you have multiple monitors, you can slide it off to the side. We also put in a button here to trim it down. So that you can still interact with it and work with it, but still see most of your workspace. Or you can dynamically adjust the size of this window, however you want to do that. Some of the other things you have here are, being able to lock a page. So you can see here we've got these little padlocks next to these various capabilities. And if I go in and look at some of these pages, you see that some have them, some do not. This one has a lot of them, but I can lock all of them or unlock all of them, or I can go in and lock individual ones that I don't want the individual illustrators actually creating changes for. And then I've got my preview, which would apply that change only in here. It doesn't actually, in essence, write it to the standard. If I hit apply, then it will actually save the changes I did on this page, as opposed to just letting me visually see them. So with that in mind, if we do like something like come down here to callouts, the callout styles that I have in here right now, we have this one. I can edit that. I can go in here and change, say, the shape of it and turn it into a rectangle. I can hit OK, and if I hit preview, now those are rectangles. I haven't saved that yet, but it's something that I could do. One of the other things I could do is if I don't want to use this anymore, I could actually delete it. And the first thing it asks me is, what do I want to use as a replacement? I could use a user defined. I've got another one down here that's uses the item tag capability. So if I click on that one, notice that call out that I had is now gone from here. Now if I click preview, it's now showing me what the result of that change would be. And then if I click apply here, now it actually will save the change that I did to this page, and I can go off and do something else. So maybe I come in here and I want to either add an additional publishing rule or change one. So if I go in here under edit, and I want to change something here, let's do something a little more interesting. Maybe I want to add SVG or something like that as an output. So I could come in here, add SVG. I could set all these here. I can just go SVG and click OK. Now I have that. Obviously, if I hit preview, there's nothing out here that we're going to see that's different. So I can just hit apply. And now that has changed my publishing rules, or changed the rules that are available for publishing. Maybe I can come in here and do something with, let's see, the 3D pages here. So right now I've got these. Let's say I want to change one of these. So I know this is the A5, and I wouldn't necessarily change the A5, but hey, this is a demo, so I can break rules. So maybe we just wanted to make an adjustment to this, and this is now 170 by 250, something like that. And so I can go ahead and click OK. And again, if I apply it, if this page had been using that A5 size, then it would have changed the page size. Part of the reason I'm making these changes is so that you can actually see this update. So if I go in here and make whatever changes it is that I want to, this gives me that flexibility of not only making the changes, but being able to lock and prevent the individual users from making those changes. So now if I click OK, it gives me a result. So I've added SVG, excuse me, and I've changed this. I can apply that to a clipboard, or excuse me, copy it to a clipboard. So if I wanted to keep track of what changes and whatnot that I've made, I could do that as well. And so now it takes me back to here. Now, if I go into manage, you can see that I now have a new standard that I can manage. So I could go in and edit it some more if I wanted to, or I could click share. And let's see, where is my, so I could just save that in essence. And now I have a zip pack of that standard, which I could then send out to other people. So that's this component. So now let's see what happens if I open that sample. And I forgot a step. My bad. Live demos. Creo Illustrate is not seeing that yet because I made the change after it had launched. So let me relaunch it so that it now sees it. Another tip for you if you're going through and checking your stuff. Okay. So now you can see why. Why did it not? So we will add that. There we go. I must have done something wrong in how I executed that, but in essence, this is the dialogue that should have popped up once it had already been added. So my apologies for that. Not sure exactly what I didn't do in the correct order, but I missed something. So now we can see that, yes, there is an updated standard and I can apply that standard. And as you can see here, it's also asking, you know, we noticed that this item number call out was removed and that it's saying to use the item tag call out in replace of that. But I still have the option if I want to redefine that at this final stage here, being as I didn't lock anything. So if I click OK, it will apply that. And now I get a report. So what were the changes? So keep in mind that, you know, I'm an individual illustrator now. I may not be aware of what changes were actually made. You know, so now I've got this. We've added this, or excuse me, we've replaced my item number call out with item tag. This has been removed and we've made changes to this. And I can copy that to the clipboard as well. So if I again want to keep a record of those changes, that kind of thing. And then if we go in and look at our figures, you can see that my call out styles are already updated. And let me see here. By applying this page size, notice that my ability to manage those has been removed. So I would need to go in here and excuse me. See, it doesn't let me edit anymore because I am not in the new mode. I don't have the, I'm not in the administration tool mode. So as an illustrator, I don't have permission to make those changes. And with that, do we have any questions on this first set, either the admin tool itself and or the update of the standard in the C3DI file?
I don't see any questions right now at this time.
Okay. We will go ahead and continue on. So the next capability is based on being able to edit animation effects. So, you know, in Creo Illustrate, you've been able to use like the unscrew, flash, wobble, you know, fade in, fade out, those kinds of things. But when you actually applied those in the timeline, you get a bunch of keyframes, which makes it, you know, less than enjoyable. Well, for some it might be enjoyable, but for most it makes it less enjoyable to actually edit what it is you wanted the flash or the unscrew to be able to do. For a lot of people, it was just easier to delete that little time block and then reapply it with whatever changes you want. So what we've done now, you can see here in this image, is that you have an effect. So I've got my gearbox here. Normally you would have seen various keyframes for color or visibility or location, that kind of thing. But now we actually have an effects subcategory. And this is where you'll find those effects, the flash and unscrew and those kinds of things. And you can see it is a block as opposed to individual keyframes. So let me go ahead and show you that. So we have just this basically empty sequence. And so what I can do here is if I go in and say I want to apply an effect, I go ahead and just click a random part, and we want to flash that. So I get the dialog. It allows me to specify what color I want to flash that as. And let's say I want to do it 3 times, and we click OK. And if I drag this slowly, you can see that it goes through that flashing sequence. If I go in here, you see now I have this effect instead of the individual keyframes for this. So if I select that, I now have the ability to edit the effect, or if I wanted to, I could convert it to keyframes. So if I want to manipulate the keyframes directly, I can do that. So I can come in here and say, okay, I want that to happen 5 times now, and maybe I want that to be yellow. I can click OK, and now if I drag this, you see it pulses many more times and is now yellow. But this basically works for all of the effects. So you can go in there and edit those, make adjustments to them, that kind of thing. Now, there is one exception as far as being able to, like if you reverse the step or reverse the full sequence, the unscrew effect does not reverse. So that is something that you would have to handle directly, at least in this iteration. We are looking at possibilities on how we can have it do that appropriately. But for right now, that doesn't directly reverse itself if you were to reverse the step or the procedure or that kind of thing. So, do we have any questions on this?
One question did come in. It says typically you have to add the standard in options. Standard, are you saying now that this is automatic?
So for me, it should have been automatic because I was on the same machine. So I'm not sure why. I must have missed something, but it should have added that new updated standard directly into my preferences location on my machine. Whereas for everyone else, you would still need to distribute that zip package and have them add it under options. We are looking at future capability as far as having that managed inside of Windchill, that kind of thing, so that you would make changes to that. It would be uploaded to Windchill, and then everybody's Creo Illustrate would just see that and use it in that regard, as opposed to having to manually do it on each individual machine. So yes, you still need to apply that updated standard to that instance of Creo Illustrate. The snafu I had was that it generally does it automatically because I'm on the same machine I was doing the editing on.
That was the only question at this time.
All right, awesome. So with that, we will go to the next one. So this one, there's really not a demo for. This has to do with the textures and decals that were being put into the published PVZ content. In some cases, were larger than the 3D geometry itself, which was not a good scenario. So what we've done is we went back and looked at that. We actually changed the file format to, I believe it was WebP, and applied a new compression algorithm to it. And so now those textures have been reduced by as much as 90%. Now, this is not that the PVZ is reduced by 90%. This is the textures that are saved inside of the PVZ file have been reduced by that amount. So if we take a quick look here, you can see I've got a texture sample that was created in 7.1 and the same file created in 8.0. So if we look at the 7.1, you can see that some of these are, or most of them are over a megabyte. In some cases, they're up to 12 megabytes for these individual textures. Now, if I go into the 8.0, and the only thing that I did was save this file out of 8.0 or publish it out of 8.0. I made no changes to any publishing rules or anything else. You can now see that these are significantly reduced. And that one that was 12 meg is now 1.7 as opposed to 12 meg. So it significantly reduced the size of the file. And you can see that reflected right here in the size of the two PVZ files. Again, the only difference was that we used a different file format and compression algorithm to reduce the size of those textures. Any questions there?
Okay, I believe there's one question.
Okay.
It says, is there a roadmap or timeline as to when IsoDraw functionality will be fully available and Creo Illustrate and IsoDraw can be eliminated?
Not currently. There are discussions going on around that, but I have no definitive information that I can give you about that, unfortunately. So
that was the only question at this time.
All right. So next up is not really a feature, just something you should be aware of. In order to run Creo Illustrate 8, or for that matter, any of the Creo 8 packages, it does require an update to the licensed server software. So you would need to be running this version of the licensed server software or newer, although this should be the newest one right now. And yes, you do need to update your licenses to be able to run the 8.0 version of Creo Illustrate. The 7.x licenses will not allow you to run 8.0. So just keep that in mind when you get ready to deploy, that you do need to have the licensed server software updated. That's assuming that you're using floating licenses. If you're using locked licenses, then you just need to refresh your licenses to turn them into 8.0 licenses, and then you should be good to go.